So, hello everyone. As mentioned before, we today have a short webinar around best price and best price guarantee, how to handle the situation currently with the several legal aspects of it that are handled in front of several courts across Europe. And obviously, we're also going to cover several technical aspects. I know that the topic best price is always a very emotional one and also a very legal one. Unfortunately, I'm neither a psychologist nor a lawyer, so from my side, I can more reflect the commercial sides of best price guarantee, and I think this is also the only sides where we can basically do something as hotels. So let us start. For all of you who don't know me, my name is Uli Kastner. I'm the founder of myhotelshop. Personally, I worked for several hotel chains in the past. I was working for Starwood, Accor, and Hilton, and also moved to the dark side of the power afterwards. So I had the pleasure of working for several OTAs, but also meta searchers and review portals like TripAdvisor and Trivago. And during that time, I obviously was also working very closely with platforms like Booking.com. So I also know them very well for many years. And let us directly move into some charts, some statistics that I put together, because what you see in this chart is actually a percentage change of sources, of booking sources in the hotel landscape in Europe. So this is a study across Europe, and as you can see, the booking portals since 2013 increased the share from roughly 20.5% to over 25%, while we're losing more and more business through our direct channels like telephone. And if you look at that same chart with the development since 2002 to 2012, you can even see that traditional channels like telephone were reduced from over almost 50%, went down to roughly the 22% now. And as you can see, that most of that business actually went into online travel agents. So we were not able to gather those bookings in the direct area back to our websites, but due to that, obviously a lot of people now are booking online through OTAs, which is, as you know, a quite expensive endeavor. I know that this is partially a technology development and also partially simply a development that people move from offline to online, and that from a strategic point of view, hotels were not able to attract as many people through their websites than they were before through the telephone. But nevertheless, there's also obviously one correlation which is very closely together with price parities, because obviously with the introduction of the internet, prices became much more transparent, and many prices that were previously sold exclusively through several offline channels moved into the online space, and through the transparency of those prices, obviously also a lot of people changed the booking channel from direct to indirect because they were finally made aware that there are cheaper prices out there. And some of you might remember, but platforms like Octopus Travel have been around for several years. So that started 2004. In 2004, it was Octopus Travel. Then 5 years later, it was platforms like we did in Germany, Up in Urlaub and hotelreservation.com. And nowadays, you have platforms like Amoma, which obviously cause problems in diverting rates from wholesalers that are not belonging to the online world, but still prices show up that were historically were actually supposed to be sold through travel agents. So as you see, the reason is that in the past, the distribution was quite easy because people were either going straight into the hotel or going by telephone. And in today's world, and that chart is something that I've been carrying around, I think, for the last 10 years already. But nevertheless, it still easily shows you how distribution works in hotels. So hotels basically give rates and availability across platforms. And across these platforms, they are hoping, obviously, for distribution in various different segments. So if a hotel gives a rate to a tour operator or a accommodation wholesaler, in the past, this was mainly done to gather business from travel agents. But in today's world, these allotments and prices that were actually traditionally being sold in travel agencies are now also going straight into OTAs. And I myself worked for a large OTA where we had exactly that business model. So at the time, and if you look at this little OTA part, we were contracting directly with hotels on a commission model. So we were in a 15% commission, and let's assume a hotel gave us 15%. And on a 15% commission as an OTA, we made obviously 15 euro profit or margin. And at the same time, nevertheless, what we built, and this is exactly what Amoma does nowadays, and other platforms similar to them, is that they are also building interfaces to wholesalers or to tour operators where they can get access to cheaper net rates. So let's assume for the same search, for the same day, for the same room, for the same length of stay, we now get we get 100 euro from the hotel, but at the same time we also get 70 euro from a wholesaler on a net basis. So what did we do? We increased the price to 95, so our margin was 25 euro. We sold the room for 95 euro instead of 100. We're 5 euro cheaper than the hotel directly, and also made 10 euro more profit. So in return, nevertheless, the hotel, instead of getting 85 euro for the same traveler, for the same room, they're getting instead of 85 euro, they only get potentially 70 or even less, potentially even 60 euro, because the wholesaler wants to earn some money too. And then at that point in time, obviously the hotel made a loss, a profit loss of, let's say, 25 euro too. So one more party earning money, but at the same time less money for the hotel. And that's the transparency of the internet. And the problem that we have nowadays is that every platform sells to every player, and that even though you run prices into the offline world, those prices show up in the online world, are moved back and forth, and it's very hard to control those prices. This is obviously the one side. With wholesalers, there are many other factors. For example, I like a nice example of a Swedish hotel, with a Swedish hotel that we had, and that was selling actually as a cheaper price to Expedia on the American market. So we had a market-based pricing, which actually makes a lot of sense, because you're giving out those prices through Expedia to the US market, which is then not shown on the Swedish market. And the Swedish market is the home market of this hotel, so that's where they don't need incremental business. But at the same time, they were moving out and said, okay, in America, we can offer a lower price to Expedia because it will not harm our local market. But what happened to that price? Expedia then passed it on to the affiliate network. Within the affiliate network, which is a platform of, let's say, 100,000 different websites, a website like Get a Room picked up the price and sold it on getaroom.com. So Get a Room is a website, again, predominantly present in America, but then partially also in Europe. But then they actually took that price and connected themselves to Hotels Combined, which is a meta search in the Australian market. So at the time, that was still not a problem because the prices were in Australia. But then what happened after that is that Hotels Combined is powering the technology of Momondo. And Momondo is the biggest meta search in Sweden. So all of a sudden, through Expedia to Get a Room to Hotels Combined to Momondo, all of a sudden the price that was supposed to be sold in America was sold in Sweden. And you can see the problem that obviously every platform also needs to make a share. So the commission that the hotel paid to Expedia, everyone needs to be paid, right? And that's also a problem, that obviously this is all paid based on the discount of the commission that the hotel gave, and on top of that, the hotel also gave a discount with a cheaper rate, and then cannibalizing their own market in Sweden. So that's not really smart, and many hotels don't understand how rates can travel from A to B. In the end, it's a technology game, but everyone can connect to everyone, and in nowadays world, it's quite easy. If you push a rate into one database, that in one way or the other, it will show up online. So what is really important, that you read your contract and that you don't oversell your hotel, because overselling your hotel means that you're selling the room to the same travelers through various platforms. And either you decide that you have one platform that covers those markets for your hotels, or at the same time, you might be even able to reach those clients directly with your own website. And then many of these platforms don't really bring you incremental business, but they're just targeting and hitting on the same customers that you can actually get yourself. So what kind of problems can appear? If you look at your current problems that can appear, like the ones I already mentioned, but generally speaking, yes, you can give cheap net rates to wholesalers, which in my eyes is a pretty old story, and we still see it, nevertheless, quite dominant in the market, that many hotels still sell cheap net rates through wholesalers, so like hotel beds and so on. At the same time, also tour operators are working in the field. So even platforms like TUI and Thomas Cook are selling prices through TUI.com. Both obviously also get allotments, so net rates are usually combined with allotments, which is the next problem, that even though you might not be cheaper through your net rates or cheaper through your website than on wholesalers. But then they also have allotments. So in case your hotel is full, they can sell rooms while you are sold out. So again, this is a price advantage if someone can sell rooms while you are sold out. Happens very often in leisure destinations, where obviously wholesalers and tour operators have large inventories during the high season, and then all of a sudden your rooms are gone, and through your normal channels you have to close everything, and then the only channels able to sell are tour operators and wholesalers. So not very smart either. Another big problem that is occurring over the last month and years is that many OTAs also sell cheaper rates because you give them prepaid rates, so the price is paid on the on the OTA side, and then the OTA pays reduction of commission to the hotel. But if the OTA is actually reducing their own commission to actually undercut your own price, this is a huge problem, because you think you give them €100, but in reality they might sell it for 95 and just give away €5 of the commission straight to the hotel. But then, and that is really hard to control, because the only way to control that is to not accept prepaid prices. Another problem, nevertheless, and that's also something I saw personally with many hotels, is that OTAs also give cashback. So I even saw it with Booking in one hotel in Hamburg, where they were actively writing to people who were staying in a hotel and paying in a hotel that Booking.com would pay them cash back once if they book with Booking.com. So that way, actually, the client pays in the hotel but still gets money refunded. And if you look at, for example, many of you might have seen it, but Amazon is now also working together with Booking, so people on Amazon Prime can book through Booking.com, and then every booking they make is a cashback in terms of Amazon vouchers, and this again is a cashback. Or even hotels.com, where you book 10 rooms, and then once you book 10 hotels, you get the 11th stay for free. This is another form of cashback, and that is obviously quite difficult, because regardless how the customer pays, this can in a way undercut the current price. So that is just basically one of the reasons why prices can be different. But then looking at a commercial world, how can that harm you? Apart from the fact that people are cheaper than you, but what does it actually mean to you? Let's take a look at that hotel in Istanbul. So that hotel in Istanbul, I made a screenshot where people were searching, and that was in January, and you can see that the website was sold for €67, but Booking.com is sold for 62. So the same room again. And in total, the hotel has, and I have another screenshot here, again, €75 for the hotel, and then on the same date, Expedia for €69. Overall, you can see that you have three OTAs, one website, but you have 4 different prices. So here you can argue many reasons what's going wrong here. One thing is definitely a technical issue, where the hotel is selling so many different prices. So obviously the channel manager is not working as it should, and at the same time, you could also argue that potentially there's also a tax issue, because that's another reason many hotels don't know. But if you might look at it from your own perspective in your own country, and looking at your own perspective in your own country might include all the taxes. But if someone searches in America, the whole search might be without VAT, might be without city tax, and all of a sudden the price as it is displayed is cheaper than your website, because your website is always showing inclusive. But OTAs have a way of showing different prices with or without taxes in different countries. So what does that mean? So obviously you have several possible impacts, and several different outcomes. So let's look at those. One problem that you have when you look at that is obviously when you have different prices on different platforms, like the hotel in Istanbul, you have a huge credibility loss. I mean, you will never see an Apple product having different prices in different markets. This is simply impossible, and is always one of the key elements of a brand is to have one price for everyone. And having different prices is a huge credibility loss for your brand. So you harm yourself. So if you don't have a proper rate parity in place, it's really highly dangerous for your own brand and for your own reputation. The next problem, nevertheless, is also, and now we come into the meta search space, where myhotelshop is obviously very active. When we manage a lot of hotels, and you're connected with your own website, like the hotel in Istanbul, but someone else is having a lower price than you, then you cannot really get any market share. So if 1,000 people click on your hotels, but obviously 99% go on the cheapest price, only one person might click on your hotel website, while 99 might click to Booking.com. So this is a lost opportunity. And the next problem is, if that's happening, then indirectly also the OTAs are steering your visibility, because you might move up and down on Google or on Trivago, but if you don't really have a control over your first position, then the OTAs will control your visibility, let's say on Trivago, for example. But then the problem is an OTA like Booking.com is live on every hotel in your destination on Trivago, but at the same time, they obviously will push those hotels up to the top on Trivago that are most profitable for them, and those hotels are usually the ones who pay the highest commission. So obviously, if you want to have control of your visibility on platforms like Trivago or Google yourself, it's quite important that you are able to kind of like win back the top position. But winning back the top position is much cheaper when you have the lowest price. In the case of the hotel in Istanbul, the problem is that they have to pay much higher cost per clicks to get top position back, because obviously Booking is cheaper. So just to give you a rough idea, we can always say that if you are cheaper, if you have having a cheaper price on your website, let's say 5% cheaper price than the OTAs, you will save up to 20% cost per click. So the costs on the cost per click that you have on these platforms will go down significantly. But the same way, it is the other way around. If Booking.com is cheaper than you, Booking.com pays much less. So if you want to get back top position, you have to pay so much more. And I will show you one example later how much more you actually have to pay, which can sometimes be even up to 50-60% more than what you pay that if you have a lower price. And now take the example of the hotel in Istanbul. So this hotel was selling on Booking for 62 euro, let's say, and an 80% commission. So they make 50 euro net for one room night. At the same time, on the website, they were selling for 67 euro. No commission on the website, but obviously paying money to Google, let's say, costs them an average of 13 euros. Still, that would leave them 58 euro net, so 8 euro more. So let's say you sell those rooms for 67 euro on all channels all the time. Yeah, and you put this on 5 rooms a day, and you lose 8 euro towards Booking in the situation, you could earn 14,600 euro more, which is profit and not revenue. With 14,600 euro, I think you can already hire quite some sophisticated people. So the next slide, which is unfortunately a screenshot with German, but I explain it quickly. On the left side, you see the price situation, easy to translate. First one is best price. Those are a hotel chain of 12 hotels. We had a total of the 12 hotels. We had 3 hotels with best price. We had 7 hotels that had no best price on meta search, and 2 hotels that were sometimes having best price, sometimes having not best price. Of the 3 hotels being cheaper than the OTAs, always cheaper or most of the time cheaper than the OTAs, we invested 4,500 euro in, I think it was a 2 months trial, and then within that we made around 30,000, which is roughly a CPR of 15%. So a commission cost, an efficient commission cost of 15%. We pay cost per click, but at the end of the day, effectively it's 15%, which in that case is lower than Booking.com and Expedia. So that hotel was clearly successful because they took away bookings from Booking.com and Expedia for a lower cost. So in that case, they saved several money and more profitable. This is what we do at myhotelshop, right? This is what we do. We put hotels live on meta search, and we try to run their campaigns on a cheaper cost than what they would pay if they don't do it, and all the bookings come in through the website. But because you have to pay a cost per click, the risk is higher. So now you can see with the 7 hotels that have no best price, we spent much less money. So you can first of all see, because most of the time they were not top position, they obviously didn't get as many clicks. In that case, not getting clicks also means less cost. But obviously, with the 3 hotels that we were having at the top, with 3 hotels we were spending 3 times more money than with the 7 hotels that hadn't, simply because the hotels were always showing up top position. But at the same time, the costs, obviously, for the 7 hotels only returned a revenue of 3,220 euro. So in total, the commission were at 47% effectively, which is obviously far too expensive for the hotels. And now you can see that at the first level, the hotels were like, oh no, we had bad results on meta search. Meta search is bad. But we were able to show them, look, if you have best price, if you have pricing in order, your hotels could be profitable, but they weren't because your prices were not in order. So you are, first of all, losing the clients searching on Trivago and Google for your hotels to Booking.com, and the few people who did actually click on your website actually kind of like didn't convert, potentially went back to Booking.com and booked there because it was cheaper. So that was really an issue for those hotels, and you could clearly show them that having a wrong price policy is clearly also affecting negatively on the marketing activities on their website, but also obviously making them lose on a market share towards the OTAs and potentially also other hotels. Because what we also saw that the hotels having best price had a much better ranking in the destination, had a much better visibility. So taking this now onto the next level for 2 out of those 12 hotels. So with 2 out of those 12 hotels, you can see that the hotel number 1 at the top, you can see this hotel was live on Trivago, on Google Hotels, TripAdvisor, etc. We could prove to them, so this hotel generated in total revenue for 8.6% costs, while another hotel doing the same thing in the same amount of time actually had a cost of 30.5%. So the return of investment almost 3 times lower. And what you can also see, this hotel, because it was also in the same destination, this hotel having the website at the top, but cheaper than Booking.com and Expedia, only paid a cost per click of €1.08, while the hotel not having best price, and we were trying to push the hotel over to top position, had to pay an average CPC of 1.58, so 50 cents more or 50% more. Yeah, so these are significant drivers that are reducing your revenue and your profitability, which is obviously something you absolutely should not want to have, and is clearly impacting your bottom line. So once you do this, it's obviously very important that if you want to spend money on meta search platforms and on price comparison platforms, it's very important, because without having the best and most attractive price, people will maximum click on your website to inform themselves and then go back and always go for the cheapest rate. So you pay double, you pay for the click and for the commission, and that is not really what you're up for. So how do we now deal with that? Because obviously with Booking.com, we have several issues at place. Yeah? With Booking.com, we now have a legal situation where in some countries they are allowed to do best price in their terms and conditions. In some countries they aren't. At the same time, we're dealing with programs like Booking Genius, where obviously hotels give another 10% discount to a closed user group. Coming to that closed user group, I believe this is a really naive way of thinking of hotels. It's not really closed user groups. These 10% are available to the public. Even though, I mean, what is the requirement? You have to register on Booking.com with your email to get access to a 10% lower price. So for hotels, this is clearly a price that they compete with in the public, because anyone can register with an email address on Booking.com. At the same time, it's also, I mean, it's a 10% discount on price. It's a significant discount on your actual room rate. So this is definitely not the smartest thing to do. And at the same time, I also believe that the legal issues are only partially the real problem that we're talking about, because in the end, it's not about terms and conditions from Booking.com being legal or not. I mean, in the past, in some countries, people were judged that they said, okay, the terms and conditions of Booking are illegal or legal. Okay, the terms and conditions of Booking in many countries are considered as not being correct, as not being legal, so we can't enforce them. Now in Germany, for example, we had a ruling where a court said, okay, the terms and conditions are legal, so now Booking.com can enforce it. So what does it in the end mean to enforce it? Enforcing it means that Booking.com can downgrade you in terms of ranking and in terms of visibility on their website because you're not sticking to best rate guarantee for them. So is that okay or not? Okay, some countries say yes, some countries say no, but generally speaking, the reason they can do it is actually only because you are not you're not independent enough. If you were, as a hotel, be independent enough from Booking.com in the first place, you wouldn't be bothered if people harm you or not. So And I'm going to go that in a minute, because now to finish off, I want to go into the opinion section. So let's say you could call it recommendations, yeah, but in the end of the day, it's obviously more an opinion than a true recommendation, because first of all, there are many people with different opinions in the market, but at the same time, obviously, I'm just one person with an opinion, and I could not give you legal advice on many of these things. Generally speaking, you can say that from the experience we made in today's world, there's absolutely no need anymore to really work on net rates and allotments with any of the tour operators and wholesalers. Most of them are technically able to connect to your channel manager, and so you can avoid any problems around allotments or net rates. But you should also obviously say you need to control your prepaid rates. So if you cannot control them manually, because that's impossible, and if you don't want to, if you can't do it legally by actually not allowing it to OTAs, because this is going to be a very difficult one, then you need to monitor your rates. There are great rate shoppers out there, and with rate shoppers, you can nowadays even monitor apps. You can even monitor the Expedia app, because also, again, book OTAs can easily sell a cheaper rate on an app because it's not transparent. So at the same time, obviously, we are trying to tell ourselves, look, if you have a proper rate shopper in place, that you can observe this, and then you can go back to those platforms and then try to speak to them and try to confront them with that and tell them not to do it anymore. Quite important is also, don't work on a manual process. Work on two-way interfaces with OTAs on a commission model. You can even go to wholesalers and tour operators nowadays and tell them, look, I have a channel manager, I have an interface to you, I want to have that interface, I give you commission, I give you a gross rate, and this is how you need to work. But generally speaking, I personally strongly still believe, regardless of any legal situation, that you can be brave enough to keep your prices below the OTA. We see it every day, and the principle is quite simple. If you can get your price below an OTA, yes, there is a risk that the OTA might blame you, that the OTA might downrank you on the OTA. On the one side, the big question is, are they allowed to do it? I think from a monopoly standpoint, it's still a very dangerous thing to do. But at the same point, yes, of course they can do it, but maybe you can substitute the business. And this is exactly what we see with the majority of our clients that we work with and that have lower prices on their website, that we can clearly see that, yes, they might lose visibility on Booking.com, and yes, they might lose business through Booking.com. But because we connect these hotels to meta searchers like Google and Trivago, we can gain a lot of business back directly from these platforms by leaving out the middleman, Booking.com. So that's really the story of today. So we are trying to show hotels over the last years that, hey, first of all, be brave, and then the business comes back. You can substitute certain booking channels. I mean, I'm not an idealistic guy, and I would never say to you that you could work without Booking.com and Expedia. That's very unlikely, and I think they're great partners on many aspects, but it's also not healthy to be depending on them too much. So at the same time, I say, look, if you are independent and if you work on your independence, you need to work on your website. But for that, many hotels still struggle on many levels, because obviously if the website is not good, if they don't invest any money in marketing, and the topic of today is best price. So if they're not offering the best price on the website, this is obviously causing significant issues. And then the website cannot be successful. But if you do this, so if you have your prices in order, and if you start investing on your website and also try marketing campaigns on meta search and on Google, this is usually something that you can greatly benefit from, and then decrease your dependency on Booking.com. And we have many hotels, many great examples, not just one, many hundreds actually, where we could prove to the hotel, do it, and then over years we were increasing the booking channel through the website significantly, even up to becoming the biggest channel within the hotel, and then Booking and Expedia becoming the second and the third. And from that moment in time, we obviously saw, hey, now we are less dependent on these guys. Now we are having a better negotiation power. And we also have more channels to choose from, because we had Booking and Expedia, and on the other side, we had our website that was getting bookings from Google, from Trivago, TripAdvisor. All of a sudden, we have 4, 5, 6 different platforms to gain traffic from. And that obviously made us much more independent. And then the next step is, okay, but how can you then obviously manage your rates and availability? Yes, I Well, let's put it that way. It always depends a little bit on what kind of hotel you have. I absolutely agree, and this is again only a subjective opinion, that you can make it work. But on the other side, there are obviously products and products. There might be a 4-star boutique hotel, freshly opened in the middle of let's say Barcelona, but there might also be like a 2-star non-branded bed and breakfast hotel in the outskirts of Milan. Obviously, it's much better and much easier for a hotel in a 4-star boutique area to be successful if they have also maybe 100 rooms versus 20 rooms. So for hotels with a certain power through product size and location, can always make their way and actually can increase their dependency, increase their independence significantly against Booking.com and Expedia. Still, though, getting significant business from them, but being able to shift many of those bookings into their own website for a lower cost. And that, again, is a higher profitability. But at the same time, this only works if you invest in website and marketing. For small hotels in a bad location, this is no doubt much more difficult. And I agree that not for every hotel this is going to work out. But let's say for the typical hotel, let's say anything 3 to 4, 40 rooms, and then maybe in a bigger location, or also even in leisure destinations where usually people are more loyal to hotels and also do more research for their holiday, then it's usually quite possible to actually get that problem solved. Okay, we have a question. There is a tendency of the price parity at your website and OTAs offering more benefits for direct bookings. What is your opinion about that? That's a very good question. One thing that you can discuss is obviously adding breakfast or adding half board to the price, and that basically, or giving free Wi-Fi or a free upgrade or free minibar or anything, but keep price parity, right? So having price parity but more advantages for direct bookings. Absolutely viable way to do. Makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely the second thing to do after having a real lower price. The only thing I can say is that also depends very much also on the way you promote this benefit. Many hotels have benefits through bookings on their own website, but you can't find it. So you come on the website, you don't see it. You go into the booking engine, you can't read it. You cannot transparently see it. Then the whole benefit is useless. And I mean, I'm stating the obvious here, and a lot of people might say, okay, that's stupid. Why should they have a benefit if people don't find it? I see it all the time. I see it all the time that hotels have benefits on their website and nobody actually sees those benefits until they're actually checking into the hotel or even after they check out. So you need to make it very transparent on your website. And at the same time, the second problem is that if you search on Google or on Trivago and you have your own website connected, it's not always easy to bring the benefit across in a price comparison engine. So very often you only see the price and you might have a price parity, but you don't see that this price includes this and the other price includes that. Very often the platforms are not good enough in showing this information transparently. They're getting better in it. Google and Trivago both put a lot of effort into showing these nuances. So if you cannot see it and if you cannot find it, it's useless. If you can really show it and bring it across, it's a perfect, brilliant way of surrounding rate parity. But obviously, it's much more difficult. And you know how the internet is. People search and they sometimes only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to look at the answer. And if the answer is not there straight into your face, it might be very difficult to actually show the customer the difference of the price. Good. Is there any other questions so far? As I said, we wanted to keep the webinar roughly around 30 minutes, maximum 40. So I think we're pretty much in time, 35 minutes so far. As I said, for me, it's really about being brave. It's about trying your ways. And again, remember one thing: prices is something you can change every day. Prices is something that are not made in stone. It's something you can try out. It's something you can test. It's something you can change every day. So if you do things, I mean, you need obviously maybe a little bit of consultancy. So that's definitely something we are more than happy to help you on. So if you have any questions around potential strategies, or if you have any questions around how you could do this, how you could set this up in your channel manager, feel free to talk to us, feel free to talk to me and my team. We are more than happy to give you more insights around it. Obviously, having rate parity issues is really recommend to get rid of it. I mean, we even have platforms like Booking Basic in place now. I mean, I haven't mentioned that on Booking Basic. Booking simply also pulls cheaper rates that are not contracted directly with Booking and sells them through Booking.com simply to underbid prices on your website. I mean, this is always something where you need to stop working through too many players. Yeah, at the same time, control your rates, control your price parity through various shopping tools, and then it's obviously quite important to place your website also on platforms like Google and Trivago. Okay, one last question. How long will it take for a small hotel which isn't being found without Booking to implement your strategy of CPC? Well, it's quite an easy thing. Your hotel is already sold through Trivago and Google, right? But predominantly by having a placement through Booking.com or Expedia or one of the OTAs. So the first thing is to actually get your hotel website live and immediately shift parts of that business over to your own website. But that only works if your website is cheaper or at least as attractive as Booking.com and the other OTAs. So if you're more expensive, a CPC strategy is very difficult to implement. Usually, I mean, we can see it with thousands of hotels that have a best price guarantee is always at least 100%, and you saw it 15% versus 47%. So price is crucial, but obviously your website, your booking engine, your content, obviously many factors. But usually if you have a best price in place, then we can see that immediate impact. Most of the hotels work immediately. If they have a good booking engine, obviously if technology is working well, they usually work immediately. So it doesn't take significantly long. If you have price issues, and that's something many hotels don't even know if they have price issues, but one thing we do, we monitor rates for you quite closely. So we can see, and only by you going live on meta search, you will all of a sudden potentially see what price issues you have. If you have price issues, we will notice them, and then we feed it back to you, and then we need to solve it. Then it can take a little bit longer. If you have no price issues, usually the CPC strategy can work quite quickly. So usually I always say you should get something around 1,000 clicks to get an answer to that. Yeah. But obviously, yes, and depending on where you are, 1,000 clicks can go in a week or can go in 1 month or even longer. That depends a little bit on the size and the location. But usually I should always say, get 1,000 clicks and see how it works. But if your rates are good and if your booking engine is good, usually the ROIs are very good from the very first day. That is a clear role. The only real reason why this shouldn't be the case is, sorry, pardon my language, but if you have a crappy product and in a crappy location, then you're always going to have a problem. But then you also have a problem in being sold on Booking.com. Very good question, though. Okay, in that case, we're almost at the 45 minutes. So thanks for staying with me. And obviously, as I said, if you have any questions from my team, drop us an email or contact us through our website. We are more than happy to help you on that. There are several issues, obviously, that go even deeper in a webinar. It's always high level, 40, 45 minutes don't allow for a real deep dive. But for me, it's quite important just to show you the most important factors. And then if you are more interested, feel free to contact us and we take it to the next level. I wish you a lovely Monday and a successful week.